What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host BJ Dell, and today is another new drawing tutorial in my series where I use the iPad in Procreate to show you how to draw every single letter of the alphabet as an animal that begins with that letter. Today is the letter I, and I'm going to show you how to draw this cool looking Ibex for the letter I. Yes, Ibex is a thing. I didn't use viewer suggestions for this one because everybody's suggestion was iguana. That was it. It was only iguana, and I used gecko for the letter G. Iguana, gecko seem too close together. But going forward, if you have any suggestions for any future letters, leave a comment down below, and you might see your idea come to life in one of the upcoming videos. But today, it's all about the Ibex. So let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, so starting out, I'm using a 4,000 pixel by 4,000 pixel 300 dpi canvas. It's an RGB canvas. For my brushes today, I'm going to be using my Essential Creator set for Procreate. It's available on Gumroad. We're going to start out with the Brainstorm sketch brush and switch over to a couple of these other ones later on in the tutorial. And then finally for the color palette, once again, I've got this pre-made, so if you want to download the exact same colors that I'm using in today's tutorial, you can get that for free if you go to my website, bjdell.com. Underneath the YouTube reference materials page, you'll find a link for that. There's also a link down in the description below that will get you there. So let's go ahead and get started. Begin with just using the first black color there, and I want to get my eye in there as a kind of guide or a reference. So we're going to go up to our wrench icon. We're going to go to add and then add text. Let's select I here. And then let's double tap here to change the font. And I've been using Arial for this entire series so far, so we'll stick with that and we'll go with bold. And then grab the arrow to resize here. Just kind of get it centered. Both the orange lines there, the horizontal and the vertical, lets us know it's in the middle of the canvas. And there we go. Now with this I, I'm not a huge fan of just the solid bar. I kind of like the uppercase I that's got the bars on the top and bottom too. So we're going to add those in here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to make a new layer on top of our first one here. And then we'll drag and drop solid black in there, and then using the arrow again with freeform selected this time, we'll drop down the size of this and get this centered in here. Looks good. Now that we've got that, I'm going to take that new layer that we just made, we'll slide it to the left and duplicate it. Then with the arrow, just going to drag it down. We'll get that at the bottom here and lock it in. Now I'm going to pinch all three of those layers together, so now they're all on one. So from here, of course, it's a little too dark. We need to be able to draw on top of it, so we're going to hit that N for blend mode, drop down our opacity down to about 15–16%. Okay, looks good. Now, to be honest with you, an Ibex, never drawn one of those before in my art career, so I'm going to use a reference for this one. So I've already found a picture, so I'm going to go up to my wrench icon again, go over to canvas, and then we're going to turn on reference here. It's on canvas right now, so I want to select image. We'll import image. It's going to bring up the camera roll, and there's my Ibex. So I'm going to move this off to the side just by grabbing that top part of the window there. And there's our Ibex. I can zoom in and out there just by pinching. All right, so with the Ibex, we've got the horns here at the top. So obviously I'm gonna have those come out here on this side. And then for the bottom ones down, the bottom line down here, he's got kind of that billy goat gruff part down here, kind of that lower goatee. So I'm gonna just kind of splice that and have that coming off here for the bottom to form that. We'll see if this works out. And then of course just kind of a straight on look at his face. So that's just going to be the face. We're not going to do a body or anything else. This one's just going to be the face. So with this one, I think too, with it being a centered face, I'm just going to use the symmetry function here to kind of speed things up. So if we go up here to our wrench icon again, and we turn on drawing guide. We're still on canvas here. We're going to turn on drawing guide and then edit drawing guide. I'm going to turn symmetry on here, and you'll see that line down the center then. It's going to mirror basically anything we draw from one side to the other. So we'll hit done. And then using that Brainstorm sketch brush, I've got that set at 19%. I'm gonna up the opacity here to that second one, 17%. Just kind of start drawing here. And if we open up this, you'll see it shows our eyes assisted, but we want this to be the assisted one. So we're gonna drag our layer 1 on top, and then I'm gonna tap that, and I'm gonna turn on drawing assist. So now that this is assisted, anything we draw on this side is going to show up over here on that side. All right. So let's kind of begin here. I'm going to start with the head. It's going to start here at the base of where those two lines meet. We'll start sketching that out and kind of bringing it down. I'm just going to do a basic shape to begin with here. We've got the oval for our head there. I'm going to kind of play with proportions and stuff going further here. So now that we've got that, let's go ahead and get the nose in there. So I'm going to bring the nose down here towards the bottom. Kind of get that. Locked in right there. And then the snout kind of coming down and around. Get that in there, and this bottom lip part. There we go. Then let's see, let's maybe get the eyes in here next. So we'll just do some ovals to get the general area of those, and then kind of fine tune where those go. We'll get the pupils in there, and the iris coming around the outside, and then get those pupils filled in. Just like that. I'm going to start building up the contours here, the outside. So got kind of some bags there underneath, and then the brow here on the top. And bring that around. On the top of the head here. Definitely making this a little bit more cartoony, obviously, so my proportions are wildly different than the reference material we're going off of. I'll start to bring this around there, and I think now I'm going to grab the arrow here. I'm going to squeeze it together just a little bit so it fills that eye a little bit more. It's more in line with the narrowness of that. And then from here, I'm just going to draw a line across for these horns. We'll kind of have them start to come in there in the center. Bring those around here like this. We can have the ears coming up over top of those. Give them some eyebrows here. And then the way that the snout comes up here, we'll kind of continue that up. Just like that. All right, and then for the bottom here, this is where things get funky. Same thing here as we did on the top. We'll bring that in and then pull it back out here to the ends, and then we'll have some hair strands there. All right. And of course up here we've got those curves, the lines that gives that the texture, so we'll kind of bring those in across there. I think I want to actually make this a little bit wider. have that come up against the eyes. We can kind of see how that comes up there, so we'll bring this out a little bit more. I think that brings home the shape a little bit better. All right, so there's our sketch. Let me turn off the eye, and that's what we're left with. So that's what we're going to use for our base design. So now we're ready to go in and add the inks. So to begin the inks, we're going to go ahead and make a new layer on top of layer 1. We're going to open up the blend mode again here and drop the opacity down. This one I'm going to leave about, go a little bit higher on this one, about 30%, so we can still see it there. And with that done now, I'm going to switch over to the smooth inker for our outlines. And once again here, we want to tap on this layer and turn on drawing assist so we still have that same mirroring effect from one side to the other. This one I got set at a 7% size, so we can kind of go in and start the drawing here. So let me zoom in a little bit, and we'll start here with this line here and pull this around. Now this is where mirroring and that symmetry kind of gets wonky, because when you have a curve line like this that meets, you really have to kind of fine tune it by hand. So using the brush and then holding down on the eraser will give me the same eraser that I'm drawing with. I just got to kind of fine tune that to where those meet. It's really kind of hard to get that to meet just right on those curved kind of circular lines with symmetry. I think it looks pretty acceptable there. So all right, we'll just continue down here with our lines. I think I'm going to do the eyes here because we have a lot of connecting lines that come into these eyes. So I'm going to bring these up and around. Just kind of continue these lines as we go. We'll pull on a tapered line here as this comes out. And then pulling that bag back out and in. I'm going to try that one more time, starting with the tapered end. Sometimes your stroke might look better starting the taper instead of ending with it. It just depends on the positioning of your hands and the positioning of the way your stroke is. We'll see, I'm just moving my canvas down as we go and just overlapping those lines so they've got the tapers in them. Bring in the pupil here, just holding down to lock it in. I'll drag and drop that in there to fill it in. Holding down there gives me the line around there. And once again here, we're coming into that center line now, so you've got to be careful where that joins. And same thing here. To come back in there once again, just kind of zooming in, and I always twist the canvas to have a different angled approach to it. Sometimes I'll erase the line and build it back up then, and erase again just to get it exactly lined up. All right, there we go. I think that looks good. All right, continuing back on here, we're going to run into the same issue here, so start there and bring it back around, meet there in the center, eraser to kind of fine tune it. This one I'm not going to connect all the way. I'm going to have that one kind of be the lip. Sometimes it might be easier too to start from the center and pull it out. Sometimes you'll get a better result with that symmetry if you start in the center. Pull them back out, you can see what we're left with there. Get these lines in here. This one should be fairly easy because we can stop it and then kind of break it off there. and then continue the line up right there. All right, get some of these tapers in here for the lines on this little goatee. Just like that. Pull them back out, you can see where we're at. Zoom in here for the ears. And then finally for the horns. Once again, that center gives you kind of some headaches when you've got to connect everything. That's why I don't use the symmetry too often. I kind of steer clear of it. But on a design like this, I think it benefits. It'll kind of speed up the process as well. So with these lines, you'll see I'm just kind of alternating the tapers. So the taper goes here to the thicker part, and then it reverses. Just kind of continue that back and forth. Going down. And there we go. So let me go ahead and go back up here to layers. I'm going to turn off the sketch now. And the last thing I want to do, I want to add in some highlights here to the eyes. So I'm going to turn off drawing assist now and hold down in the background to select white. And I'll have the light source coming in from this top right hand corner. So I want the highlights to be here on the right hand side. That's why I turned off the drawing assist. Otherwise they would just mirror each other. So one would be over here and then one would be over here on this side. So doing it like that makes it so we can control what side they show up on. So there we go. There's our inked version. So now from here, we're ready to move on and add our color flats. So to begin the color flats, we're going to come up here to the layers menu. I'm going to make a new layer underneath layer 3. We'll tap layer 3 and set this as reference, so it allows us to drag and drop all of our colors onto layer 4. Then going back up to our color palette, we've got this first brown color. We'll drag and drop that. That's going to be the main color for the head there, and then we'll use that for the goatee down here. All right, make another new layer here. We'll switch colors. We've got the gray for the mouth. I think we'll do the nose then, a separate layer. So back up to layers, new layer, drag and drop. And then I'm just going to fill in those little nostrils by hand so we are sure that we get those and don't hit the lines. Next up, we've got this goldish color here. We'll make a new layer. That'll be for the horns. I got to do the ears there too. So we'll do that under that head layer here. Whoops, hit the lines. And then we'll do the inside of those, the gray color that we used. All right, on that same layer then, let's go ahead and select, let's see, we'll use that color we used for the nose. We'll use that for the eyebrows there. And then finally, one more new layer here with that yellow for the eyes. Then we'll make one last layer for the orange for the irises there, which I'm zooming in just so I don't hit those lines. It's easier to drag and drop that color and not hit those if you're pretty close. So there we go. I'm going to turn off our reference now. We don't need that anymore. So we'll turn that off, and there's our color flats for design. So we got the inks and the color flats from here then. We're ready to move on and start doing the shadows. So let's do that next. So to begin the shadows, I'm going to come up here to the layers menu. We're going to start with the head. So we'll make a new layer on top of that. I'm going to tap that and set it as clipping mask. So that allows us to draw on this layer, and it's only going to show up on the layer 4 underneath it. Back up to our color palette. We've got this brown here. We're going to use that. And we're not going to use the drawing assist, so we're not turning that on. We're going to do everything here by hand now. I'm also going to turn, let's see, let's wait to turn off reference just for now. So with layer 10, I'm going to, once again, we got the light source coming in from here. I'm going to drag and drop that into there and also there. We'll remove a little bit of that with an eraser, but for right now, we'll leave it as is. So now I'm going to go ahead and turn off reference. Back to layer 10 here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And with that smooth inker still, I'm going to drag a shadow here underneath the eyebrow. Kind of continue that around here. Once we connect all these lines, then can drag in and drop the color to fill that in. Now from here we'll kind of pull in a curve here that kind of matches with the curve we've already got going on. Once all those lines are connected, we can drag and drop to fill that in, just like that. Pull this shadow here around this back side. And now that we've got a decent amount filled in there, I'm going to go up here to my layers menu. We're going to go to N for blend mode again, and we're going to drop the opacity. So however dark you think you need it, I'm going to go for about 35%. I think that looks pretty good there. And then I'm going to kind of continue this process. We're going to go underneath this eyebrow. This is why I didn't want the symmetry tool turned on, because obviously the light source coming in from this top side is going to affect everything differently from one side to the next. So that was the reason for that. All right, I think that looks good. Probably get here underneath these. We can kind of bring in some other shadows here. And then I'm going to come in underneath each of these lines and just do a little tapered shadow under those. So bring those around. And then using the eraser, we can go back in and just kind of pull out any overlaps that we had on those lines. Also continue that shadow here down and around. I'll pull it further down on this one. All right. Now, like I said, I didn't want this completely filled in over here, because you can't really tell it's shadowed in if that entire section is that color, that value. So we'll pull the eraser, just pull a little bit out there. Do the same thing on the top here, these lines, just so you've got a couple of different values there that lets the viewer see that there is a shadow there. Do the same thing up here using the eraser. We'll just pull out on the edge of these lines. Not going overboard with it, just a little bit here and a little bit there, just so it breaks it up. I think that looks good. Maybe one more here. All right, fantastic. Okay, so that's going to be it for the shadows on that layer. Let's go ahead and move over to the next layer. Then we've got the mouth here, or the snout. So new layer on top of that one, clipping mask. And then we'll go in, and I think I'm going to use the gray that we used for the nose there. We'll try this as the shadow color and see how this works. So we'll pull this around. Once we get it connected, then once again we can drag and drop. And then going up here to the layers menu, and for blend mode again, dropping down the opacity. Got this one down to about 30%. I think it looks pretty good. All right, I'm gonna fill this pretty heavily down here on that left hand side, especially underneath this as well. Bring that down and around. Okay, so I think that's pretty good then for that part. Maybe bring this down a little bit further. All right, now for the nose, layer 6, new layer on top of there, clipping mask again, and I'm going to use the black for this one. So this, we're not going to be able to do too much here before dropping the opacity because we can't see what we've overlapped with. So going up to the layers menu and hitting N for blend mode, bring this down about 17%. I think looks good there. Hit the bottom here just a little bit, and then the inside of that nostril. We'll get that there. All right, back up to our layers menu. We've got the horns next, so layer 7, new layer there. We'll tap, set that as clipping mask. And then we'll go in here, once again with that same brown color. I think that'll still work pretty well here. So we'll bring in shadow here. And once we get an area decently filled in there, I'm going to pull in a couple here on the back sides of these lines, then using the eraser just to kind of fine tune them. We'll go ahead and drop the opacity then. Once again, coming back up to the layers, N for blend mode, dropping down that opacity about 33%. I think looks good. I'm going to zoom in tighter here so we can see. We'll get some more of these tapered lines coming around like that. And I think this one I might bring in kind of up and around here just to break it up a little bit more. I think that looks good. Okay, now we'll continue here kind of doing the same thing on the left hand side of these lines, bringing in the shadows just to give that a little bit more depth and dimension there. And for these tapers, it's just a light press, and as you go into the stroke, just a harder press as you follow that stroke around. All right, that looks good. Next up, let's see. Let me turn. What do we have the ears on? Are these? Yeah, these are all on one. So layer 4. If we go back to layer 10, we need to do some shadows here inside. Using that same color, we can get the shadows here inside these ears. I forgot about these being on that same layer. So we get the shadow inside there. And then we can kind of move on then. All right, so let's see, we've got the eyes next. So let's go ahead and I'm going to make a new layer here. Once again, clipping mask. And then let's see, what do we want to use here? I think we can use that same color that we're using now, but I'm going to switch this brush over and I'm going to use the soft rendering brush now. I like to use that on the eyes. I'm just going to bring that around the edge here. And up into there. We'll do the same thing here on this. You see, it kind of gives it that more rendered look to it. And then from here then, I'm going to use this one color and we'll just add a little bit of a highlight here on this side. And making the brush smaller here, I'm going to add a little bit of one around the iris there. Okay, looks good. Finally then, we've got the irises here, so I'm going to make a new layer on top of there, set it as clipping mask, and then we'll use that same shadow color there, still using that soft rendering brush. going to make these darker at the bottom. Just bring that up. Just like that. And then we'll switch over the color to this brighter kind of yellowish color. We'll hit the top there and kind of bring that down in. So it's going to kind of go from that yellow to the orange to that darker brown. And pulling back, you can kind of see what that looks like. I think it looks pretty cool. All right, so that's pretty much it for the shadows. Let's go ahead and start working on the highlights. So once again, we started here with the head. We will begin there again. Now, before I make new layers, I'm gonna select that yellow that we're using. That's gonna be the highlight color. I'm gonna try the highlights on the same layer to see if the blend mode percentage, the opacity, works for both the highlights and the shadows. If not, I'll just make a new layer. So we're gonna go back to that smooth inker and then kind of pull in a highlight here. And I think that might be a little bit too light. So I am gonna make a new layer here for the highlight. So with our layer 4 selected, making a new layer automatically sets that as clipping mask since that one's above it. So now I'm gonna bring in the highlight there and we'll bring in a highlight here. Try that one more time. Want the curve to kind of line up with the shape we've already got started with that outline there. So now that we've got that, I can go back up to the blend mode with the layers menu, drop this down, and I think like 55% looks pretty good there. And we'll just continue this process around here. So I'm gonna hit the edge of this, come down and around. Edge of the eye here. We'll hit that. I think hit the edge of this one too. So we'll have some highlight, you know, some hitting there from the light source that's coming in. I think that looks good. And then where do we have the eyebrows at? Is that on this layer too? It is. So we can use this on the eyebrows here too. It's hitting the top edge of this. Hit that one there and then hit a little bit here on this one. All right, looks good. Let's continue here to the ear. Get a highlight there. Then we'll pull some highlights down here. So one there, and then we can pull in a few on top of these lines. And we can even do some here in the middle as well. Once again, they're just tapered lines there. Okay, next up, let's go to the snout there, new layer here. And for this one, we'll use the off-white color. And this one, I didn't even test the opacity setting to see if we could use the same layer, because using a dark color and a light color, they're gonna be wildly different. So you're automatically gonna have to adjust these separate. So like that, I think 45% looks pretty good. And this one we had, what, set at 30. So there was a pretty big difference there. Just gonna kind of work on getting those lines to match up a little bit more. And I think that's it for that one. We'll do the nose next here. So another new layer. Once again, if we have the nose selected, automatically sets it as clipping mask because that one's already set as clipping mask. So we can pull in, highlight here. I'm going to zoom in pretty tight on this just to get a nice smooth line. And then we're going to drop the opacity down in this one. That one's about 32. I'll do a couple of oval highlights here as well, just to give that a little bit more detail and pizzazz or flair. All right, and next up we've got the horns there. So layer 7. Let's go ahead, let's test this one and see if this is gonna work. So we're on layer 13 now. I'm going to go in here, this one, and I'm going to actually use white. So holding down in the background, we'll select white. Oops. I want to be on layer 13 there. I think that actually looks pretty good on that one if we're using white. So we can use our white there. Once again, let's kind of do some oval highlights in here. Might even do, let's see, let's grab the selection tool, and with freehand here, I'm going to go in and kind of just make some funky shapes here. Then we'll drag and drop. We can do some highlights that way too. If you don't like your shape that you did, we'll use that to knock it out there. Using the eraser, then we can come in here and just kind of fine tune that shape. But you can come up with some pretty cool shapes like that with the selection tool if you just want to add in some funky highlights around there. Dragging and dropping the color to fill it in, or you can always go in and fill it in by hand. Do stuff like that. Once again, if you don't really dig it all that much, you can go in with your brush and kind of fine tune it. Or you can go in with your eraser and pull it back. All right, there we go. I'm gonna fix that little part right there. We had a little gap on that one. We are on that same layer as those shadows, so you got to be careful. Anything that you do erasing wise, it might erase those as you hit them. So, all right, pulling back out, then you can see what we've got there. And yeah, I think that's pretty good. From here, then, if you want to go back to your lines layer, you can always go in with black to add in some extra details. This is where I'll add in with the smooth inker here. I'll add in some extra stuff, like if you wanted to add in some little lines like that so the fur looks a little bit more ragged and jagged. You can do that. You can add in some dots here on the snout for some extra details. Let's see, maybe some lines like this across the snout. Once again, we didn't do that to begin with because that would have not been possible with the symmetry setup. So that's another option. With some dots in here just to add in some more details there. Whatever you decide that you want to do, maybe even cross-hatching in here on the horns. You bring in some extra lines here. Totally up to you with what you want to do to make it your own. But finally, to make it my own, I'm going to come in here, make a new layer, sign this guy, and then we will be done with today's tutorial. So there we go, how to draw an Ibex for the letter I. Appreciate you watching. If you got some valuable information out of this tutorial, if you learned something new, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell for notifications so you can get alerted when I post new videos. Also, if you've got an idea for any letters going forward, we've got the rest of the alphabet after I, so definitely leave a comment down below with an animal that you would like to see for that letter, and you might see your idea brought to life just like the one in the video today. So once again, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you guys do follow along with any of the videos too and want to share your work, which I definitely urge, if you're on Instagram or Twitter or Threads, post it on there. Tag me at BJ Dell so I can check them out. Love seeing your guys' work. Really, really cool stuff that you guys come up with. So it's pretty awesome checking it out. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. Stay tuned to the channel. I'm going out to London next month, just a little over a week from now, for the new Procreate announcement. Super excited about that. So I'll be sure to fill you guys in. There'll be a lot more cool stuff on the channel coming around based on that. So that's it for today. I can also be found online, bjdell.com. So until next time, keep creating.